As you can see, I made it public so people don't have to register, so they can get direct to the YouTube link. I figured YouTube would be easier for most people, right, to be able to follow along.
Right.
Because LinkedIn is not quite as simple, right? To be able to follow along, it's a bit clunkier. So the broadcast is live. We are live, Alex. Yeah, and I can see myself on my other computer. So it's just, so this is the weirdest thing. So I'm staring at the StreamYard software here with Alex, and I can't see myself on the StreamYard, but I can see that I am showing on the actual live stream. So it's, so that's reassured me that I'm not Mr. Invisible on the live stream. So welcome, Alex. Welcome to the live stream. Thanks for agreeing to do this, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, James, thanks for having me. I've been following your content for a really long time. Love your approach to LinkedIn. So it's really good to be here. And yeah, let's go. I'm down to talk lead gen, down to have a very valuable session, the most valuable session anyone's ever heard, in fact.
That's a pretty bold claim. Let's see if we live up to that. Let's see if we live up to that in the comments in the end. But people are coming through on the live stream, so people are here, right? They're ready and waiting to hear from the $100 million man, right? So that's what I call you, the $100 million man. So I think before we get started, so we got a whole bunch of questions. Thank you to everyone that registered and shared your question. So Alex, I shared those questions with you, right? You have a chance to look through them. There's a whole bunch of useful stuff. I think we should just run through those questions because this is what people want to know about how to build a $100 million B2B lead generation machine with cold email and LinkedIn. And but before we get into answering questions, there will be some people that haven't heard of Alex Berman, and it might be hard to believe, right? But there will be some out there. So why don't you just do a bit of brief intro for people that don't know you, about your background and why you're qualified to talk about cold email.
Sure. I'm Alex Berman. I'm the author of Cold Email Manifesto, best-selling book on cold email. I have, like James has said, it's closer to $200 million in leads generated now for our clients and our companies. Using cold email is a superpower, something we've been doing for years and years and years, teaching it on YouTube to now almost 90,000 subs, 50,000 on Twitter. So I'm excited to share everything, What's the most qualifications that I got? Best case study I could probably give you is for Taplio, one of our SaaSes. We're able to add a bunch of enterprise companies like Tesla, Moody's, McKinsey, using cold email in under 3 weeks. So most SaaS companies really struggle to add those logos, and using the superpower of cold email, we're able to lock those in under 3 weeks. So I really like it. I believe cold email is a superpower, and everybody should learn it.
So, dude, so let's start with how you got into cold email. How did you discover this superpower? There must be a great story behind that.
So there's this thing called the lean product development cycle, which is all about asking for customer feedback. And this was the big thing when I was first learning marketing, 7-8 years ago. And it was all about asking customers for feedback using emails. And so I was watching this class, and I just kind of got inspired, and I sent a bunch of emails to these startup founders. And these were people, I didn't know anybody. I was over in Florida. But after sending 10, 20 emails, I was getting responses back from people like Neil Patel and the founder of Udemy and all these guys. And it just made me realize, a lot of people's biggest issue, or at least my biggest issue at the time, was everyone that's successful has these connections, right? They're only succeeding because of their connections. But what I found out just in that 5 seconds of sending 10 emails or whatever, I found out that you can make these connections very quickly and for free. And as soon as I got that bug, I was sold on cold email. I moved to New York shortly after that with no connections, and just sat there in a coffee shop grinding cold emails for 2 weeks. Got a job at a funded startup. Again, used it to build a consulting business. Used it to get another job at an agency in New York. Then used cold email and some other marketing tactics to grow our lead flow there. We became an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company. It was 4 years in a row. I got promoted from junior sales guy up to director of marketing, and then started our own firm, X27, where I was able to use cold email to add 600,000 in annual recurring revenue in under 60 days, sending these emails, selling lead generation and marketing to agencies. So
600,000 revenue in 60 days.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's insane, but it's also super predictable because all I had to do was, we had this marketing offer for agencies. And I had a strong case study with my other agency, because I was the guy who delivered leads. I actually had the founder of that agency even record a video for us that said we added 16% to their bottom line, which at the time was about $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million in revenue. And all the other agencies in the community that I was emailing had heard of this company. So when I called out, hey, I did the marketing for this company, we got this result. It was very, very simple to get people on the phone. And then just, at that point, you just let them buy. That's it.
And so you were one of kind of the early adopters in this, not the first, but one of the early pioneers in really popularizing this methodology, right? Because I always say there's no cold email salesman. There's people that will want to sell you Facebook ads, all kinds of advertising platforms, and nobody really sells cold email. And yet it is one of the most powerful, the most widely used ways to acquire clients, just in that regard alone, that exists, right? It's one of these weirdest things. It's the biggest secret that nobody's ever heard of, that yet everybody uses. So I definitely learned. I first got into cold email, and I learned seriously. It was learning from your experiences at X27, the stuff you were sharing on your YouTube, even way back then, right? So all the knowledge you were giving away, the examples, etc., was super useful. And so that's why I credit you a lot with what I've learned from using cold email in personally and for clients as well. So guys, there you go. You got a very qualified man to answer your questions about cold email. And we had a lot of questions come through from people that registered in the chat, Alex. So I reckon we should just go through and start to pick some of those questions. Now, I will say that really cold email, if you're kind of new to it or even just vaguely heard of it, I mean, there's three main areas. And I'm looking at all the questions that have come in. The three main areas. So one is targeting, one is messaging, and the other one is tools, things you need to use to actually make it happen. I mean, would it be fair to say that cold email, those are the three main areas that you need to know about in order to call?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say one is more important than all of them, which is targeting. And I would also say offer was not mentioned by anybody. It's a big elephant in the room. But if you have the right offer and the right target, it doesn't matter what tools you're using. You could use your regular Gmail account, and it doesn't matter what your email script is. It could be a 1-sentencer or a 7-paragraph email. So yeah, 90% of it, maybe 80-20, 80% of it is going to be the target and the offer. And then 20% is going to be everything else.
Right. Got it. Cool. So let's start with the targeting then and work through. Let's talk about some targeting questions, because inevitably the question best niche, right, comes in. So again, best niche, a little bit broad, depends what you're looking to do. I guess if you're an agency, it depends on your business model. But I guess let's talk about targeting in general. How do you go about targeting? What is a good type of person to target for a cold email campaign?
It starts with what you're selling. So for instance, at X27, when we were first starting, I had a background in marketing for agencies. So our target, I knew, was going to be either directors of marketing, directors of sales, or CEOs at agencies. We were able to get that targeting down even more by finding companies that had opted in some way to marketing services. That's called finding a lead pool. So what we did is there's a site called clutch.co where companies were paying anywhere from $3K to $10K a month to advertise on this site. So what I figured was if they're paying $10K a month already for marketing on this website, they might as well, pay us for marketing at the same time. So then we were able to build a list there. We were able to send a cold email calling out, Clutch advertisers, and it was able to work really well. More recent campaign, like the one we did for Taplio to get those enterprise clients, it was similar. So a lot of people, when they're going out and they're reaching, trying to get new clients for their agencies, they think super broad. They're like, oh, I want directors of growth at rapidly growing startups. And that's one way to go about it. But what we did instead is I thought about what our app actually does, which is, Taplio provides content for LinkedIn. So it helps people that are on LinkedIn write content faster. So instead of reaching out to heads of growth at all startups, I reached out to people that worked at these companies that had over 50,000 followers on LinkedIn. So we were able to build a list. So like I reached out to a dude that works at Tesla that has 50,000 followers, or a guy that works at McKinsey, or somebody that works at Qualtrics that has over 50,000 LinkedIn followers. And from there, it was very simple to get them to trial the app. No demos. I took 0 demo calls for this campaign. So that's what it's all about. When we're talking about targeting, it's finding that. It's finding not just the exact, high level, what is the revenue, what is the title of the person, but also if you could find one other piece where they're opting in some way that shows that they're going to be interested in your service or your SaaS.
Yeah, I love it. Because of course the big temptation with email is like, I have this superpower. I can email the whole world. So I want to email at scale. Everybody wants to email at scale, right, Alex? Nobody wants to go to nice, well-defined small groups of people where the conversion will be much higher. So I guess, would that be the biggest mistake you see people make, going too broad in their targeting, to not taking the time to identify the real ideal prospects for what they're looking to sell?
Yes, and it's similar to Facebook ads in a way. Like if you made a broad Facebook ad for B2B and you pushed it out, it would be a lot more expensive to convert a customer than if you had a Facebook ad that was more targeted and maybe even the copy was tailored for that specific person. Like, hey, coaches in Orlando versus, hey, business owner. One of those two is going to be more expensive, and it's the more broad one. And because cold email is free, people forget that. But it is, you can have a lot more results if you just go super, super detailed with the targeting. And you don't have to waste time with personalized first lines. Like for instance, right. For the agencies, all I had to do, because we were all talking about agencies on Clutch, all I had to do was call out a portfolio item. Like, hey, big fan of your agency, love the work you did with Power Rangers, noticed you were advertising on Clutch and blah, blah, blah. And the email seems like it was written just for them because they were advertising on Clutch. Similar to these enterprise companies, the only first line I had was, hey, Mark, huge fan of your LinkedIn content, really respect what you're doing. I had run a startup called Taplio that does XYZ, whatever. So I didn't even have to I got these enterprise companies without even having to customize a single email. It was just an email blast. And those are the best campaigns. When you can get your ideal client profile down to that level, then yeah, you can save more time and you can get more results.
Right. Very cool. So I tell you what. So I think we're going to jump between, I think, targeting, messaging, and tools, right? Because they're all interlinked, right? So let's jump over to messaging a little bit. So what are the best kind of messages that are most effective for cold email that you have found over the years?
I like to use the 3 C's approach. 3 C's. So compliment, case study, call to action. So it would be something like, hey, James, big fan of your LinkedIn content, been following you for a while. I help influencers generate more leads via Twitter. Recently, I worked with Oliver Canton and booked him 30 meetings in 2 weeks and would love to do the same for you. Mind if I send over a few times to chat? So all I did there was compliment you on your work, tell you about doing a similar job for somebody else and asking for a meeting. And that email works phenomenally well.
100%. So that's a simple 3-part structure that anyone can do. But I guess you got to make sure you do your homework. You got to do the targeting, and you got to also have the social proof, right? Because this is where a lot of people struggle to convey the value that they actually provide for their clients, right? And so how effective is cold email if you don't have that kind of social proof element? Any one of those 3 parts, or let's just say the middle part, the social proof, the meat in the sandwich, if that's missing, how effective are those messages?
Not so effective. That's the biggest part of it is the case study, because the whole approach that we have is, you're a successful person that happens to be looking for more clients, but how do they know you're successful if you're not telling them? So it's very important to build that case study, and you can start small. I know I've been doing a similar version of this my entire career. When I was looking for that job in New York City, I was talking about, I had written a book on Amazon and went from 0 to 300 sales in 60 days, right? That was my case study back then. Then I used that to get another job where I was doing cold calls and booking meetings. And then that was my case study. And then, then I became the junior sales guy, built up another case study there, and I was able to use that. Now we've got SaaS exits. Now we've got all this stuff. So it really is just trading your way up the chain. If you don't have a case study, then I would recommend doing what I did, which is launching a project on your own and getting some results for that project. because if you don't know that you can fulfill the skill, or at least a version of the skill, then you're no better than a scammer. If you're going out there searching for your first cold email client, you're going to charge somebody $3,000 for a month, and you've never sent a cold email in your life. That's just setting yourself up for failure. You're better off sending some cold emails on your own, understanding the systems, understanding how that works. And then once you have some results, now you can actually call those out as your case studies, and you're in the game.
Yeah, 100%, totally agree. And the thing about case studies, you can also borrow other people's case studies, right? I always say this, it's especially people getting started. You can say, so for example, if you do emails for e-com, right? You can, you talk about Chase Diamond, right? So, you can talk about some of the case studies that he's achieved, taking e-com brands from 2 to 5% of revenue up to 25 to 30% of revenue from email as a channel. And you can, so you're sharing the case study about what's possible, and now you know how he's done it, and you're obviously offering people to do the same. You're not saying that was your client, but you're saying those results are possible, and you know how to do it, and would you be interested in finding out how, right? So even if you are getting started, as long as you've got a mentor, a guide, or a process that gets results, then it's totally fine to share that with people. But you do need something tangible, and I think people, this is where. Let's talk about copywriting for a second, right? Because it's having an offer, you got to convey that language. How important to you, or what's your journey been for you personally learning about copywriting? Because you weren't just born learning how to write copy, right? How much did you have to learn how to put words and phrases together that actually impact?
So the way that I write copy is very loose. I learned a lot from Neville Medora, who runs copywriting course, and his entire approach is straightforward. If you're on a consult with him, he'll say, "Hey, how would you sell this to me?" And then he'll just write down whatever you say word for word, and that'll be your copy. And that is the most effective way that I've found to write copy as well. Just take it, boil it down to as simple as possible, remove all the acronyms, remove any sort of industry speak that you can think of, and that'll be your copy from there. A lot of people make this mistake. Conversion rate experts will be talking about CRO in their email that stands for conversion rate optimization. I don't know that. The client doesn't know that. Even advertisers will talk about like, hey, I'm going to increase your ROAS. Well, if you're reaching out to people that have never run a Facebook ad before, how are they supposed to even know what that means?
100%. So you got to use language that that your prospects will understand, and you're totally right. So we are brought up, especially through the academic world, to be more formal, to use longer language, I'm constantly having to beat that out of my clients, that way of thinking, and it's super hard to deprogram ourselves from that way of writing. So but it's a necessary step, isn't it? I started to learn about direct response copy via Dan Kennedy. So this was like 17 years ago, and I would take all of the audio files that I could get from Dan Kennedy. I'd put them on my iPod, and I would listen to them as I was driving around in my sales job, right? So I started to educate myself about direct response copywriting, and just that base is the same. It doesn't matter whether you're writing ads for Facebook or whether you're doing cold emails or LinkedIn outreach. Like, the principles of good copy are the same, and they're evergreen and timeless. And people, it's one of the skills that will give you the greatest amount of return on investment for anything that you ever going to learn, right? So I think people underestimate the skill of copy, and it is a learnable skill. Anybody can learn it, but you need to know how to put those offers together, how to say things succinctly in order to have impact. Because the other thing people do with emails is they're tempted to write essays, right? Let's talk about length of cold email. What's an ideal length of cold email? You already said there's 3 parts to the structure. What about if those 3 parts are like 3 long paragraphs? Is that going to work as well?
I like to keep the emails short, like, readable on an iPhone screen without scrolling. To your point about succinctness, I think one of the things that really helped, you're making me realize this now, is I ran a meetup in New York City, and every single month I had to meet 100 people and get them to respect me as the leader of the group. So I would mold the pitch of my service to try to get them interested. So I'd be like, hey, I'm Alex. I work for an agency, Dom and Tom, and we've done work with Power Rangers, Tyson Chicken, Hearst Publications. And that was the line that I came up with, do you need a website? Hey, I'm Alex Berman. We've done hey, I'm Alex Berman. I work with this company. We've done this work. Do you need XYZ? And that just came from, meeting people over and over again. And it was the same with Inspire Beats, with our lead generation company, and with X27. I was out there in San Francisco and I was just meeting people at these meetups, and the pitch would just get boiled down. So that's one thing that a lot of marketers don't realize. And I think one place where, my sales background helps is if you go out there and you just pitch your service a couple times, you'll understand that nobody understands what you're talking about. And then you'll have to change it a little bit. And then you'll try to figure out, hey, how do I say, how do I say 10 words here to try to get them to qualify themselves as a client? And once I had that sentence down for the web design agency, I was able to book meetings just from that meetup. Like every single month we were generating like $30,000, $40,000 in leads, like website development leads, just from meeting everybody at this meetup and pitching it that certain.
Nice, beautiful.
So that's what it comes down to for your pitch. If you're wondering, do I need a long email or a short email to sell my thing? I mean, go to an event and try to sell your thing to people and see what you have to say in order to sell it. Do you have to explain it for 2 hours before they understand? If so, you probably need to shorten it down, but I would say you can't go wrong with 5 sentences or less.
Right, 100%. And I was just, I think, so the practice of that is so super important. I remember when I first really took Twitter seriously, so I jumped on, it was almost like a couple of years ago now, just the practice of trying to keep within 280 characters is immensely powerful to improve your copy. So I don't care who you are right now, and if you have a Twitter audience of 0, just use the tweet structure to practice write cold emails in a tweet, no more than 1 tweet, 280 characters. The discipline of that will make you a much better writer. So yeah, I totally agree. Cool. So we talked about targeting. We talked a bit about messaging and offers. I think one of the other thing about offers is that it's always easier to sell offers when you're helping people make money, right? Or maybe this is a myth. Like, what do you think? So obviously in the agency space, typically we're helping our clients make more revenue, and it's always easy to sell that to people. But what about if we're not helping people make money? What if we help people with operations, or we save money, or we do other kind of services, compliance or something, which are kind of more boring, but still necessary? How would you change your approach if you were cold emailing people with less sexy offers?
Sure. So when I'm approaching an offer, I try to see it through 3 lenses, and then I'll write down 3 of each of these. So 3 ways your offer will help people save money, 3 ways your offer will help your target audience make more money, and 3 ways your offer will help your target audience save time. Now, if you can't come up with 9 of those, I would think about switching offers, because maybe it doesn't have, as strong a benefit as you think. Because I can come up with those for, everything from AWS consulting to building new websites to branding. Even accounting services, the same way, you're making people money by saving them. Sorry, you're making people money by saving them money on taxes. I guess you'd have more of a saving money, but you could frame that like, hey, my average customer makes an additional $30,000 a month just because of the way that we approach our accounting services here. So even the more boring topics can be split into those. And if you can't figure out how your service helps people make money, and or save time, you should sell something else, because you're going to have a very uphill battle. There's no reason for you to sell something that's hard to sell.
Right.
You can sell it. You can sell anything.
Yeah. And that's a good proof of testing your model, right? Testing your offer is putting it in front of people and see what response you get, right? That's going to keep you humble for sure. So cool. Okay. So let's talk.
That's what it's all about. It's putting it in front of people. It's one place that cold email wins over Facebook ads, over all these other channels, because with a cold email, as long as you send it in a way that looks human and doesn't look spammy, you're going to get an open rate. You're going to get some people responding. You're going to be able to talk to customers, versus on ads, you might spend $10,000 and then at the end of it, you're going to say, oh, my click rate was this and I got no sales. And you have no feedback besides that.
Right. 100%. Yeah. So you get direct feedback quickly from emails, good, bad, or otherwise, right? 100%. And you can also test, you can iterate super quickly, right? So I think testing, iterating, that's a good point to talk about tools, because a whole bunch of questions are here. There's a lot of beginners that are registering listening, which is understandable, right? Because not everybody is experienced in cold email. So how to get started, what tools to use, like what's the whole process? are a lot of the questions that I'm seeing in here as well. How to make automation work, right? How to automate the process. So let's talk about what are your favorite. And again, you're the guy who knows all about tools. You have multiple SaaSes yourself, but what are the considerations you have to bear in mind when thinking about what tools should you use and maybe shouldn't you use for cold email?
A lot of people try to automate too soon and send too many emails too soon. There's some tools out there, like Instantly that allow you to send, 2,000 emails a day. And you just got to ask yourself, is that something you really want for your business? Especially before you have a working script. Then there's tools out there, like Lemlist or Omni or Mailshake that are more about personalization. And that might be what you want. I know at a lot of the Silicon Valley companies, they don't want their salespeople to reach out to more than like 200 leads a week a lot of the times. So, and the reason why is each one of those leads is a person. This is what they understand. Each one of those leads is a person that could potentially buy from your company. So yeah, you could go out there and spam all 30,000, startups in your area with a script that's underperforming, or you could do what I did when I first started X27, which is I wrote every single email manually. I had no script. I would open up my Google Apps, Google Workspace account, alex@x27marketing.com, and I would just send, an email like, hey, really love the beach view at your office. I do this, and this. And I would send those, and those emails did better than any automation would. And then what we were able to do is I took, a couple of those winning scripts, and then we were able to scale up more. To 200 a week, and then 1,000 a week, and then 1,000 a day, whatever you want to end up doing. But I would not push too hard too soon, right? You're going to get a lot more. I can use the Facebook and ads analogy because a lot more people understand Facebook ads, but you wouldn't open up your Facebook ads account and immediately spend $10,000, right? You're going to spend $100 a day, maybe $50 a day, and figure it out. And it's the same with cold email. You shouldn't open up 10 domains and just blast your message out to 30,000 people. Instead, figure out what works, what targeting works, what messaging works. Then once you have something that works, you can scale it out. And cold email scales without breaking a lot easier than Facebook ads does, because you have that targeting, you have that lead list, and you can go one by one. It's a very powerful tool if done right.
So let's talk about how you structure. So some tests. So what is a big enough sample size to constitute a test? How many tests do you kind of line up when you're first getting started with a campaign? Do you have any rules, or then just no rules and you just kind of go with instinct?
Yeah, I mean, you can be super structured with it if you want. Just rule of large numbers. You want to make sure each test is 200 emails. So the problem with doing what most people do, which is sending like 3 or 4 cold emails before giving up, is let's say email 5 would have been a meeting, and maybe it would have been a 20% meeting book grade email, but you gave up before the 5th email. So let's make sure that we send at least 200 per test, and then make sure that we're testing big things in each test. The 2 things that I like to test off the bat are either benefit statements. So you're rolling through, like, hey, it'll make you money this way, it'll save you money this way, it'll save you time this way, because one of those 3 is going to appeal to your target market more. The second big one that I like to test is the actual targeting itself. So like, if I send to directors of growth in this industry, does that work better than directors of sales in this industry, et cetera, each one? Because what you really want to find are 3 data points. You want your ideal target, who am I selling to? You want your ideal offer, what am I selling and what's the best way to frame it in terms of benefit? And you want your case study that works, right? Like, what is the backup? What is the statement I have to back up that offer and show people that it works? And you can just iterate until you get there. And you can get there. Some people get there super quick. You can get there within 200 emails, especially if you have, some idea of what people want. Maybe you've gone to an event and you've tried to book meetings at an event, and, you've kind of ground through that. Some people, it takes a really long time, especially ones that are afraid to get out there and talk to customers.
Right. Cool. And do you have other rules in terms of, again, common questions for emails? What do you put in the signature? How many links do you do? Those kind of things. Are you consistent with that?
Yeah. 2 ways you can find that. So Cold Email Manifesto is 99 cents on Amazon. So I would recommend grabbing that. It's got our email scripts. It's got our signatures. Everything's in there. The other thing is if you use Omni, which is also free, The way that we have that free for 7 days, the way that we have that set up is it walks you through exactly how to do this, best practices. So it writes your email signature and writes it in the perfect way. It writes your cold email campaign. It asks you questions about who your target is, who your case study is. And it just writes this whole thing out for you. And that's all part of the free trial at omni.us. So that's the easiest way to do it. Even if you just take those scripts and you take them to Lemlist, or you take them to Instantly, like at least you've gone through and now you have this script for you.
So I think that's a perfect time, Alex, to introduce those. So why did you build Omni? Like, what was the goal behind it, and what differentiates it, I guess, from other tools in the market? Sure,
Omni is cold emailing at scale. An omni-channel outreach at scale. Like we've been saying this whole show, cold email is a superpower. But as evidenced by all these questions, it's tough to get started. It's tough to write the scripts. It's tough to know exactly where to target. It's tough to do this. So Omni is trying to make it as simple and straightforward as possible for people to get started with outbound campaigns. Right now we do cold email, we do cold SMS, and we're going to have some of these other things like handwritten notes and Twitter outreach and all this stuff very soon. But the entire point is just to make it as easy as possible, right? Fast forward a few months from now, you might even be able to have your leads chosen automatically and just put in like a budget, like, hey, I have $3,000 a month to spend on cold email, and just have it run by itself. That's the entire point of Omni.
So because you've really developed this because of your experience, and there's a lot of, it's very formulaic, right? Putting together cold email. And I guess with the advances in AI, can you speak to that? Because obviously without AI tools, this wouldn't be possible. I mean, just let people know what is possible with AI these days compared to even just a few years ago.
Sure. I mean, right now you can have AI write personalized first lines that have custom compliments pulled from their LinkedIn and pulled from all their places. Works really well. You can have AI write your cold email drips for you and have it work. And that's what we're building at Omni. I want it to be super automated, bro. I want it to be easy, because the hardest thing people have when it comes to cold emailing, the hardest thing is building that initial lead list, writing that initial sequence, and hitting send. So if we can just make that as easy as possible and do it in a way that isn't spammy like some other tools that encourage spam, we can just do it in a way that's not spammy and good for everybody, then cold emailing can continue to last into the future, because the biggest companies in the world use cold email. Microsoft is using it. Google is using cold email. Salesforce, all these companies love the channel. So let's play within the rules. Let's write some campaigns that actually get results, and Omni will help you do that.
Yeah, so it reminds me of Dan Kennedy, who, again, if you're on Money Twitter, you probably never heard of Dan Kennedy, right? But he's one of the highest paid direct response copywriters in the US in history, 35, 40 years in the industry. He's the mentor that people like Frank Kern, Russell Brunson, Ryan Dice, they all go to Dan Kennedy. They all been to Dan Kennedy. They all credit Dan Kennedy as being the guy that's really taught them the reality about marketing. So I always like to go straight to the source, right, and learn from the guy himself. And he always used to say that whenever he was going on vacation somewhere, he would write a letter to the hotel, to the resort where he was going ahead of time, so that he could get preferential treatment for whatever he wanted. Like, he would write a letter saying that, it was a special occasion, it was anniversary, it was whatever, right? So that they would get all these kind of extras whenever they would arrive. And so in his case, he was writing a sales letter, not just a cold email. But the principle relates to cold email. Like, you can reach out to anybody, and it's not just about trying to sell them something. I mean, if you want to land a job, there might be a lot of people who are listening to the stream who are not running businesses, but might be interested in looking to finding their next position. Well, can you talk about the power of cold emailing to get jobs? Is that something you've experienced in, or you've helped people do?
Yeah, of course. I've helped a ton of people get jobs. I've gotten jobs myself with cold email, but my high school friend, Fernando, he was looking for a job right outside of school. He was wanting to be an architect. And so I helped him just write an email to the head of the largest architecture firm in Dallas. And it was just like, hey, big fan of what you do. I'm a student with an architecture degree, looking to work with somebody. Like, mind if I send over sometimes for a coffee meeting? And he met with him and he got the job, and he's still working there, 4 or 5 years later. So his entire career was started off of cold email. And the advice that I have is just treat it like any other any other sales call. So instead of going after HR, think about who your boss is going to be and email them directly. I say everyone becomes a master at sales. As soon as they lose their job, they become a master at sales and outreach for about 2 weeks, until they can find another job. And somehow they forget their work.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So cool. Well, so let me open it back to you. Is there anything else that people need to know about cold email that we haven't touched upon yet that's super important?
I think the only thing we haven't mentioned is if you're an agency and you're trying to figure out how to pitch your service, the easiest way to do it is to try and productize one of your case studies. So for instance, let's say you're a web design agency and you're wondering, like, how do I pitch web design? It's so general. Should I send bullet points? What should I do? Well, the way to do it is to look at your case study, look at your case studies and find one that was super profitable and did really well for the client. And for instance, let's say that case study is like, I built a website for a brewery in, the Midwest of the United States. So now I would productize that. So instead of pitching web design to everybody, pitch web design to other breweries in the United States and see how that does.
Nice. Awesome. So again, it comes back to the messaging and offer, right? And the cold email is just a vehicle to communicate that value. But you gotta convey that value in a succinct way that's relevant to the people you're reaching out to. Right? So,
exactly. And if you're having trouble with that, go buy a ticket to a conference where your target market's going to be, and try to book a bunch of meetings. At the right conference, let's say there's 2,000 people. You go to like Dreamforce or something. You can book 100 meetings. Just sitting there and shaking hands for a couple days. So go out there and grind it. And by the end of 3 days, if you're just pitching nonstop, you'll be a sales pro. Like a lot of people say you need 10,000 hours to get good at a skill. All you really need is 1 3-day conference.
Right. Yeah, when you get lots of practice. So the other thing I was thinking about offers is that you don't always have to sell a phone call, right, on the initial cold email. So I guess what I've done a lot for clients, Alex, is I do a lot of event marketing. So on LinkedIn and off LinkedIn. But so a lot of the initial interactions I'm using is I'm inviting people to an event completely from cold. And events, I got to say, are super powerful because everybody loves events. And if you have a great hook, look at what we've done here, how to build $100 million B2B lead generation machine with cold email and LinkedIn, right? That is a hook. It's kind of social proof, a hook. It's a title all in one. And so we've got over 400 people that registered for this event after just 3 weeks of me reaching out, sadly, just to my own accounts. Nobody wanted to take your money, Alex. We tried giving away your money to people to invite to this event, but nobody wanted to take it. So I don't know what to say about that.
What we do.
It's
a good example of trying, though, because what I did. The reason why, I don't know if we want to tell the backstory of that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
James wrote out this great thread that laid it out. But what happened was I was thinking of ways that we could grow Omni, and I basically tweeted out, I'm like, if anyone has an idea that's going to cost less than $250, let's pitch it. And James' idea was, let's have people add others to this event, invite others to this event, and the person that invited the most would win the $250. So we found out, at least in this case, that was a failed test, but we still got the event of it.
Yeah, dude, I would have been happy to pay anybody that just invited someone, never mind who got the most people there, because you can't really track where people come from, right? There's no way to do that, at least with LinkedIn events.
That's a bigger lesson that's a bigger lesson for life too, right? Like, how many people that are on this event right now saw that tweet and could have won the $250 if they just invited a single person, could have made $250 and chose not to, right? Dude, and if that's you listening to this, think about where you're doing that in other areas of your life where you could easily win, and by not taking action, you are not winning.
And I think it comes out to cold email is like, really, cold email should be part of your outreach you're doing every single day, every single week, as long as you're in business looking to generate clients. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this all year round. Is that fair?
Yeah.
If you want more business, right? So and again, it's the consistency over time that builds results, like most things. So very cool, Alex. I'm just looking through. There's any other final questions that are super good ones that we missed that we should talk about? But I think you give people a lot of great information today that they can use to build their cold email campaigns. And just tell people again where they can go and get a 7-day trial for Omni. Just tell them the exact URL that they can go to get that.
To omni.us, and that's all you need. You know, I spent $5K on this domain to make it nice and short for you.
Awesome. Well, I reckon, Alex, I'm going to thank you very much for your time, mate, for hopping on and giving people a ton of value. But I think we'll go respect your time and call it a wrap here and get the replays out to everyone. So thanks so much, man, for taking the time. Maybe hopefully there'll be an opportunity in the future. One of your next SaaSes, we'll do another one and we'll tell the world about how awesome it is. But I really see that you're doing some awesome things. I think Omni is really filling a gap to make cold email easier for the masses to be able to do. I see that's that's the big selling point for me as just an end user looking at Omni, because too many of these other tools are too complicated and they don't include help with the writing and the campaign putting together, etc. So I think what you're doing is awesome. So thanks again for taking the time, mate, to come and share all your amazing history with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me, James.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.